Okay, so the postnatal growth of maxilla. The maxilla, you know, is a purely intramembranous bone. It does not have any cartilaginous component. Okay, and the mechanism of growth of maxilla, it occurs by either displacement. Okay, that is primary displacement as well as secondary displacement. So primary, there is translocation and transposition both. Then the maxilla is attached to the face by various sutures. So the growth at sutures will also push the maxilla forward, and there is surface remodeling. Okay, that means deposition and resorption on the surface of maxilla, which gives it the characteristic shape. That means how the zygoma gets enhanced. Okay, so there are various areas of deposition and resorption because of which also maxillary growth occurs. So what is displacement? We know about the basic concept of displacement. The maxilla is attached to the cranial base by a number of sutures. Okay. Now once the cranial base grows, it has a direct effect on the growth of the nasomaxillary structures. Okay. Now primary displacement or translation is nothing but when the bone grows because of its own growth. Okay, that means there is growth in the maxilla itself which pushes the maxilla forward. Example of which is the growth at the maxillary tuberosity. When this is the maxilla, there is tuberosity in the posterior part, growth in the maxillary tuberosity pushes the maxilla forward. So that is primary displacement. What is secondary displacement? Displacement of the maxilla because of bone growth at some other structures or related structures like the cranial base. When the cranial base grows downwards, the maxilla which is attached to it will also move forward. Okay, so this is secondary displacement or translocation. So these are the two main factors or reasons how the maxilla grows. Okay, now primary displacement. It is seen when the maxilla grows because of its own growth. Okay. The example I've already told you about the maxillary tuberosity. So this is the primary displacement. This is the maxillary bone which is shown separately from the rest of the skull. So when there is growth in the posterior part of the maxilla, so this is the tuberosity over here, this is the rest of the structures. When bone grows in the tuberosity area, there are the pterygoid plates which are abutting downwards. So the bone cannot push it backwards, and therefore the growth in this region pulls the or pushes the entire maxilla forwards. This is the primary displacement. Now, secondary displacement is nothing but the passive displacement which occurs because the growth of the middle cranial fossa primarily. Now, the growth of the adjacent structure influences the growth of maxilla. Again, if there is same picture, this is the maxilla, this is the cranium, and if there is growth in the cranial base, okay, so whether it's the anterior cranial fossa or the middle cranial fossa, any part if that will show growth, it will push the maxilla downward and forward. So this is the growth by secondary displacement. The direction of the arrows is very important. Okay, there is growth. You see the plus sign is in the cranium. So this is the secondary displacement. Whereas in the previous figure, there is a plus, small plus signs you can see in the posterior part of the maxilla, and therefore that is a primary displacement. Now, how does a soft tissue relate with the growth of maxilla? Now, the entire soft tissue, as you know about the functional matrix theory, it is a soft tissue which contributes or determines the growth of the bone structure secondarily. So the entire soft tissue matrix or soft tissue structure, it grows downward and forward, and there that is how it pulls the entire maxilla downward and forward. So whether it is the skin, the muscles of mastication, or whatever is attached, the lymphatics, blood vessels, all of these grow, and along with it they pull the maxilla downward. That is the growth of the soft tissue which contributes to the growth of maxilla. Okay, so the next is growth at sutures. The maxilla is connected to the cranial base by a number of sutures. Some of the primary sutures which we can name is the frontonasal suture, the frontomaxillary suture, the zygomatico-temporal, zygomatico-maxillary, the pterygopalatine. So as the name suggests, the various bones are attached by these sutures. So whenever growth occurs at this suture is nothing but the junction between the two bones. Now whenever the connective tissue in this suture, it shows growth and it is converted to bone. So it pushes, not only does it push the bones away and creates space for more growth, but the connective tissue over there goes on converting to bone. So that is how growth at the sutures results in growth of the entire maxilla. Then there is surface remodeling. Okay. Now, the surface of the maxilla is not even. Somewhere you will see concavity, somewhere there is convexity, somewhere there is sharp points, there are ridges. Okay. So, this shape or the fine tuning of the shape of the maxilla occurs because of surface remodeling. Okay. So, there is, which occurs because of massive bone deposition and resorption in the adjoining areas. This results in increase of the size of the entire bone. It also redefines the shape of the maxillary bone and it enhances the functional relationships of the bones or the various parts of the maxilla with each other. So here you can see the various areas where remodeling occurs. Okay. So the orbits are defined by remodeling. The superciliary ridges, of course, that is not the part of the maxilla, but there is deposition in the superciliary ridges. Then the borders of the orbit, okay, the nasal prominence, okay, anterior nasal spine. The spine is the depository area. Above the spine, there is a depression. Below the spine, there is a depression. These are resorptive areas. In the zygomatic prominence, this is the depository area. So all the prominent areas are formed because of deposition in that area and resorption in the adjoining area. So the scalloping occurs because of the resorption and the prominence occurs because of the deposition. This results in growth as well as redefining of the shape of the maxilla. Okay, remodeling also occurs in the palatal wall, that is, which occurs in the V direction, just like Enloe has said. So the palatal wall, it goes on growing downwards and the volume of the nasal cavity and the oral cavity enhances. Now looking at the growth of the maxilla in the 3 dimensions, how does it grow in height, how does it grow in the width, and how does it grow in the length? So maxillary height, it generally grows, the main is by the growth of the nasal cartilage. Okay. So resorption on the nasal floors and opposition on the palatal shelf. It brings the palatal floor downwards. That is how the height increases. The nasal cartilage is the primary cartilage of growth. Okay. It pushes the maxilla downward. Then maximum amount of vertical growth, it takes place between 5 to 15 years. The height occurs, growth in the height occurs till the end. Okay. Height is the last dimension where the growth ceases. Okay. And the most important is the growth of the alveolar process. As the teeth erupt, the alveolar process erupts downward and you can see that the height of the maxilla or the entire face increases. As the teeth erupt, the face becomes longer. That is because of the vertical growth or growth at the alveolar process. Now width or the transverse direction. Now growth occurs in the median suture. The two halves of the palatal shelves, they join at the mid-palatine suture. So in this suture, whenever there is growth, there is separation. It pushes the two halves of the palatine bones in the transverse direction and the central portion is, or the central mesenchyme or connective tissue is converted to bone. That is how the growth of the maxilla occurs in the transverse direction or in width. So this usually occurs till the eruption of the permanent canines. Also, there is deposition in the zygomatic area which enhances the transverse growth. Now, growth in the length is nothing but growth in the anterior-posterior direction. The length is increased by opposition. You know that the posterior part, that is tuberosity, it shows growth and it pushes the entire maxilla forward, which shows an increase in the length of the maxilla. So this is the mechanism by which maxilla grows in all three planes. Coming to the postnatal growth of mandible. Now, mandible shows both endochondral and intramembranous ossification. That means it not only ossifies directly from the mesenchyme to bone, but there is some cartilaginous part also. So, there are certain cartilaginous elements in the mandible which show endochondral growth. So, cartilage later ossifies into bone. Now, at birth, although mandible is a single bone, at birth, the two halves of the mandible, they are separated by symphyseal cartilage, which is present in the region of the chin. So, the right and the left part of the mandible, they are joined in the center by presence of some cartilage, which is called the symphyseal cartilage. Now, the postnatal growth of the mandible, to understand this properly, the mandible has been divided into several microskeletal units, or different parts of the mandible are studied separately, and each has a peculiar type and direction of growth. So the various parts of mandible which you should be knowing from the growth point of view is the two condyles, then the ramus on each side, then corpus or the body of the mandible, then there is the coronoid process on each side, angle of the mandible, okay, the alveolar process, okay, which grows with the eruption of teeth, and finally the chin. So these are the various parts under which the growth of mandible is described. Now this is a diagrammatic representation of the various skeletal units, the corpus of the body, the chin, the alveolar process, angular process, coronoid on each side, and the condylar process on each side. Okay, starting with the condyle, the mandibular condyle, it is an important growth site. If you remember, we have discussed growth site before in the lectures for growth. Okay, so growth site is an important area where genetically determined growth occurs. Now, the head of the condyle, it is covered by a thin layer of cartilage, which is called the condylar cartilage. So, condyle is an area where cartilaginous growth or endochondral growth occurs. Now, it is a secondary type of cartilage, which means that it does not develop from the primary embryonic structure. Okay, although it is a secondary cartilage, it has its own growth potential. It is responsible for the growth of the condyle, and it pushes the mandible forward. So whenever you see there's a mandible and on top there is a condyle which upwards with the temporal fossa. So whenever there is growth in the condyle, it pushes the entire mandible downward and forward, increasing its length. So the condylar growth, the cartilaginous growth in the condyle of the mandible contributes to the lengthening of the entire mandibular bone. It shows surface opposition by endochondral bone formation as well as interstitial growth. That means hypertrophy and hyperplasia, that is increase in the number and the size of the cells. Also there is opposition on the surface. Now the condyle grows upwards and backwards, resulting in a downward and forward push or translocation of the mandible. Okay, so this is the primary displacement of the mandible. Now there is also a selective remodeling in the condyle, which gives it a particular shape, and it follows the V principle as given by Enloe. So this is how the growth of the condyle occurs, and it enhances the growth of the mandible in the V direction. If you look at the inherent growth of the condyle, that also occurs in a V pattern as it is shown in this picture. Now next is the ramus. Now the growth of the ramus is interesting because remodeling in the ramus is required so that it provides space for the growth of, for the eruption of the posterior teeth. Okay, so there is resorption in the anterior border of the ramus. If you look at the ramus, there is an anterior border, there is a posterior border, a superior part, and the angle. Okay, so on the anterior surface there is resorption. So this area gets removed from the growing mandible, and compensatory deposition occurs on the posterior part of the ramus. So this not only provides space for this the ramus, because of deposition on the resorption on the anterior part and deposition on the posterior part, the ramus actually shifts posteriorly, providing more space for the eruption of the molars. These are the succedaneous teeth. So the molars are provided space. Also, it helps in the growth of the pharynx and the entire growth of the mandibular bone. So this is how the ramus growth or remodeling is important. Now the coronoid process, it is a triangular process on the upper part of the ramus. It increases in height, it widens at the same time as it grows posteriorly. Now the ramus also follows, the ramus as well as the coronoid, they all follow the V principle of growth. That is, there is resorption on the outside and deposition on the inner side. Then there is the alveolar process. Alveolar process is nothing but the one which grows in response to the development of the teeth. It grows upwards by apposition of bone on the occlusal surface of the body of the mandible because of the eruption of teeth. Because of this, there is increase in height of the mandibular process or the body of the mandible along with the vertical growth of the face. Then the chin, this is the last part of the mandible. Now chin, it develops as a separate subunit of the mandible. It is poorly developed in infancy, but the proper characteristic chin development occurs after adolescence. Okay, so again it has areas of deposition and resorption. The deposition or apposition, it occurs in the anterior as well as inferior part of the mandible. So the lower part of the chin, it becomes more prominent, whereas just below the lip there is, or just above the prominent chin, there is a depression. So that area is resorptive. This resorption and deposition gives a definite shape to the chin. And chin growth is more enhanced in adolescent in males as compared to females. So this is regarding all the parts of the mandible and the postnatal growth of the mandible in different dimensions. So this completes your topic of postnatal growth of maxilla and mandible. And with that, we have completed the entire topic of growth.